Spinning wheels coming on in. January 24th, man. 24 days.
Yeah.
24 official days into the 2024 calendar year, Tom.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. It's already gone fast. And, 2023 seemed like it went fast. And I guess it's because I'm getting older and time just goes faster.
Time is flying by, especially when it is NFL playoffs. It's conference championship weekend. We've
Yep.
got a huge show talking about these NFL conference championships, as well as some Broncos rumors. Is Russell Wilson headed to the Las Vegas Raiders? Man, we're going to answer that and more, get into some mock drafts, but the big news of the day, I'm going to just kick it off right away. Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers. Deal is done. Adam Schefter broke that news that Jim Harbaugh has officially joined the AFC West via the Los Angeles Chargers about an hour before the show started. I mean, This changes everything in the AFC West. What say you? What's your initial reaction to Jim Harbaugh, Los Angeles Chargers head coach?
It's a great hire. I mean, he was the number one choice for me last year, hoping that the Broncos could get him. He's one of the top coaches that they could have to actually make something out of the franchise that has been stuck, not underperforming for so many years. My feeling is Jim Harbaugh would help them overperform. So it's bad news for the Broncos, really, if you're a Broncos fan, but good news for Chargers fans.
I'll push back against that a little bit naturally. You knew that was coming, right? Why? Because you're a Harbaugh guy. I'm a Payton guy. So I wanted Sean here. Here's my look on it as well. Just because I don't like Jim Harbaugh does not mean that he is not qualified for any of these jobs. That's opinion-based, right? The man knows football. He knows more football than I will ever pretend to even know. However, I think this is exciting. I think this is an exciting day for Broncos country. If there's one thing we know about Sean Payton, it's about competition. The same can be said for the king of the hill right now, which is Andy Reid. What's Antonio Pierce going to look like long-term with the Raiders? I think this supercharges the division. I think it brings competition. It breathes new life into things. I'm excited to see what he can do with Justin Herbert. Let's see if this Broncos secondary is all they tout out to be. I mean, truly, this is going to be a challenge. I think if ownership were in place and a little more stable in Los Angeles, I'd feel a lot better about whoever was the head coach out there. But it's going to be real interesting to see a bigger challenge for the Denver Broncos than usual.
Yeah, and the one knock that you have to have on Jim Harbaugh is he does rub people in the front office the wrong way. He wore his welcome out in San Francisco, but there's no denying what he did. I mean, he turned that franchise around. He went 44 and 19 and one tie over 4 seasons, went to 3 conference championships with Alex Smith during one of them. So, and Andy Reid couldn't even do that. So, I mean, you can't deny that the guy's a good coach, works, gets the people around him to play better. And so my anticipation is he's going to have a pretty solid Chargers team when he's on the sideline, and none of these, we watched Staley make some boneheaded decisions that cost them some games. I don't think you're going to see that with Harbaugh. So it's going to be a tougher San Diego Chargers team to play against. It's not going to be an easy win like it seems to have been.
David coming in with a win. Thank you for joining us, David. Good to see you, Papa Bear. Saying good evening, Broncos country. Luke, Tom, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life. David, we appreciate your support. Maha salute to you. Tom, I got to challenge you on some stuff, all right? I get that Sean Payton is not necessarily your cup of tea, and you've been very eloquent into explaining as to why. He is a rule breaker, or historically has broken some rules, has gotten caught, had some egg on his face. He rubs some people the wrong way as well. When you describe Jim Harbaugh, it sounds a lot like describing Sean Payton to me. The guy knows football. He's going to rub some people the wrong way. He's going to step on some toes. He's not going to care. He broke rules in the NCAA. He's broken rules in the NFL. I mean, look, these are just kind of interesting things that I find similar in Harbaugh and Payton. The big difference, though, Payton's got the big one. Right? He's got that big ring, but we'll never forget. I think it was a Super Bowl that was so special when it's the Harbaugh Super Bowl, right? Jim versus John. And you actually get to see that again at a smaller, lesser extent, if you will, Tom, as the 49ers, or excuse me, the 49ers, like Jim still coaches the 49ers. The Chargers face off against the Ravens in the regular season next year. It'll be really cool to see both Harbaugh brothers back in the NFL. Wanted to give a shout out to our guy, Dylan Von Arks, working hard over at milehighhuddle.com and working hard on Saturday nights. I see you, Dylan. Congratulations. With Ron running a very tight pod, the Orange and Blue View. What's up, Broncos country? Make sure you hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and please subscribe if you have not done so already. In other news, I see BK in the chat here. Vic Fangio, former Broncos head coach and the Miami Dolphins, agreed to mutually part ways. Tom, is Vic Fangio officially done coaching football in the NFL, or does he want to take another year off and rejoin the team after that?
I don't know. It was a surprise to me, though. I don't kind of really understand the whole reasoning for the whole thing. He's a dang good defensive coordinator. You know, he's got a lot of influence still in the league from his defensive coordinator days. You know, a lot of coaches that follow his scheme. I don't think he's going to be unemployed for long unless he doesn't want to be. I mean, you get coaches that have coached so long like he has. It's kind of all they know. They probably stick around. They like to stick around maybe even longer than they should. So my guess is he's gonna keep coaching. And the big rumor is the Eagles are gonna be hot on his tail like right away, trying to get him, because the Philadelphia Eagles struggled on defense, and that was their downfall for the most part, in my opinion, on their bid to get back to the Super Bowl.
Well, what's interesting, too, about that is we know Vic Fangio likes eating meatball subs. Maybe he wants to trade the meatball sub in for a Philly sandwich. Philly cheesesteak. Right? Maybe that's what we're looking at. Rodney Garcia, a good friend of the show, weighing in. Good evening, Tom and Luke. Yet the Broncos aren't making any moves, especially with Russell Wilson. Not officially, Rodney, but if you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, Chad's got an article up right now. Russell Wilson to the Las Vegas Raiders? Perhaps. At least says so. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. You can read all about it. An anonymous NFL executive, one of those anonymous sources, Tom. They're always floating out there. Baffles.
They are.
we've got a per source, absolutely everything. Russell Wilson had made it known he had a potential list of teams that he preferred over others. Denver Broncos, the Chicago Bears, I think at one time, and the Las Vegas Raiders were at least teams among Russell Wilson's list. Do you think Russell Wilson to the Raiders has any probability, a realistic probability of happening? Would you care for it? What say you on the rumors of Russell Wilson to the Las Vegas Raiders as a potential connection?
Well, he's going to go somewhere. I mean, I still think he's going to want to play next year, so he's not going to sit out. The question is he going to go there of his own free will, or are they going to try and trade him there? That's the big question. That's a hard contract to trade. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Once he gets released, sure. I mean, he has his spots to choose. Does he want to play for the Raiders, though? What would attract anyone to play for the Raiders other than the mystique, right? He's
right here.
Mystique.
Right here. Sierra, one, could have a show in Las Vegas. You know that. I mean, seriously, right? Like, that's no joke. I know people could think, oh, you're being facetious. I'm not joking. I mean, it is. Russell Wilson has made it abundantly clear that family and his marriage are very important to that man. And so I think that would be a huge draw. I think the prospect of getting a third fresh start, if there is such a thing, in Sin City of all places, would appeal to the Russell Wilson story, right? Oh, trying to overcome. He's his own best producer and his own best movie star and his own movie starring himself. But when you talk about on the field, right? I mean, there's not a lot. Going for a defensive coach, maybe that would be an advantage, right? Maybe the defensive guy and Antonio Pierce is going to leave me the hell alone. I can do my own thing and be Russ and Mr. Unlimited. It's interesting, right? And I should say that when Jeremy Fowler is reporting this, suggesting it, I like to view it a lot like the mocks, right? They're mocks. We're speculating. We're not sure. It's a possibility, but we just don't know how probable it is.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I mean, it's a good landing spot for him, I guess. I mean, at this point, he's not going to be highly sought after. So but he will have a chance to probably pick and choose where he goes from the select few that are going to go after him. So, yeah. I mean, the Raiders need a quarterback. Whether they need Russell Wilson is another story.
We're talking picking and choosing, guys. Make sure you choose Little Caesars. Make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. Guys, conference championships, here we go. Make Little Caesars your dinner plans. It's going to be an awesome Sunday of football, lunch, have friends over, have a few cold pops. Little Caesars has got your back. Order online during the Pizza pregame 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day Sunday. Get ready for some football. Get ready for some fun.
Yeah, and choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. I'm a meat lovers guy. I do that all the time if I can. So, but try them all. You can't go wrong. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
Boom. Little Caesars has got your back, just like our guy Phil McLaughlin has our back, saying good evening, Thomas, Luke, and Nick and Scott. It's going to be fun to see how Payton and Harbaugh compete and compare over the next couple of years. I completely agree, Phil. And one thing that I'm kind of wondering, I'm not trying to manifest it. I'm not trying to put I don't know, a pro wrestling take, if you will. I'm not trying to add drama to a sport that has plenty already. But couldn't you see some headlines, or couldn't you see a possibility, a dream, a nightmare perhaps, of Payton and Harbaugh getting sideways with each other? Maybe it's already happened. I don't know. They're fiery guys. They're competitive guys. They're outspoken. They're bold. They're unapologetic. And that's the way they want their football teams to play. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for a renewed rivalry on all levels. You're going to get that with the Raiders and this coach. They play out of their minds for this coach. I think Max Crosby was the tip of the spear in allowing Antonio Pierce to have an opportunity to stay with the Raiders. He's like, look, if you don't hire this man, I'm out of here. Trade me. I'm done. And I can't wait to see it. I hate the Raiders, but anytime the AFC West is a stronger division in football, the Broncos usually answer the call. They improved this year. Was it good enough? No. But damn it, it's going to make for an exciting 2024 season.
Yeah, and the Broncos need to get better more talented to keep up. I mean, obviously the coach matters a lot, but there's a talent deficiency, and they've got to make some good moves this year in order to keep up, really, because you still got the top of the heap with the Chiefs, and then you've got other improving teams. So they're going to have to make some shrewd moves, and it's going to be tough because they don't have a lot of money to work with or a lot of draft picks to work with. So they're going to have to be very shrewd about it, but they need this draft to be the building blocks so that you can see, as a Broncos fan and as a Chargers fan, see these two coaches go at it for time, for more than a couple of years, because they've got to set up for the future this year.
The future is now if you are Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. Look at our friend Kathy coming in here. So good to see you, Kathy. Hello, Thomas and Luke. This AFC West is going to be lit for the next couple of years. I hope we're going to be able to find our guys soon. And that's just it, right? I think when we look at this hire initially of Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers as the new head coach, the first thing we think about is Justin Herbert. What's a Herbert Harbaugh Chargers team going to look like, right? It almost sounds like a chocolate bar, right? The Herbert Harbaugh or something. I don't know. That's the first thing that we think of. Then you think of the Denver Broncos. What do you think of? Well, we know Sean Payton's in charge. We know that Russell Wilson's probably on his way out. What are they going to do at quarterback? So, Kathy, you're exactly right for having this opinion. It's exciting, but at the same time, it's like, man, all right, Denver, we better find our guy. That pressure, just that notch, that went up a ton for Sean Payton, George Payton, and all of the Denver Broncos over there at Centura Health Training Center. Kathy, we appreciate you. Michael Ronquillo, what's up, Big Mike? Good to see you. Good evening, Thomas and Luke on the Mile High Insider, showing some love and much support. Go Broncos. Thank you, Mike. Really, really appreciate you. Repping Broncos country out there in Arizona. And then look at this cat, Rock Chalk. It's been a minute. Hopefully you're doing well and starting your 2024 off right. If this offseason wasn't already crucial for the Broncos, it has been intensified even further with Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. Drafting a quarterback is a must. The Broncos can't afford not taking a swing there. Hashtag MHH for life and Denver Broncos for life.
Well, they can't try and find a retread to fill in. I mean, they need to go big. They need to keep pace with the AFC West. And they've got to find a quarterback for the future. You've hit the nail on the head, man. It is imperative that they find a quarterback for the future now or next year. One of these 2 years, they've got to hit on somebody, because if they don't, if they draft somebody high and it's a bust, they're going to be set back even longer. Or if they go out and try and get some retread like the Broncos have been doing over and over again since Peyton Manning retired, it's going to be more of the same. So they're going to have to land that quarterback, just like you said. And it would be nice if they could do it in this draft. I don't know if they will, but it would be nice if they do.
They have no choice. They absolutely have to. And Rock Chalk, you're probably a lot like me, right? You're listening to the fellas on BTB last night, Nick, Carl, and Scott. They're spitting some fire. They're talking about mock drafts. We're talking about mock drafts with a corner and an edge rusher to Denver. Are you kidding me? Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing the source, right? Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, Mel Kiper Jr. Denver's been projected to have go defense, at least at number 12. And I'll go there with you. But Rock Chalk has a point. All right. Like the time to draft a quarterback was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. The Broncos can't afford to wait. That's just it. I mean, the pressure has dialed up for Sean Payton, and I like it. I know that you look for any advantage that you can have. And I actually think the Broncos are going to have an advantage in this area. I don't foresee this going well for Jim Harbaugh. That doesn't mean he's not going to win football games, but I think the ownership group over there in Los Angeles, the Spano family, man, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And if you don't believe me, it's not like I got sources over there or anything like that. Just go read about it. It's all over the internet. It's been around for years. When you have unstable ownership, or you have meddlesome ownership, Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboys, the disaster that is, these are kind of the results that you're going to get. So I'm not sure under the most pristine circumstances, Jim Harbaugh would do well with the Chargers. He's not my guy, but in no way, shape, or form do I fear the Los Angeles Chargers today, Tom. Like, I'm excited for the news because I think it's going to get the Broncos maybe some more primetime games, right? What does this do for the Broncos? Well, I think it puts the Chargers and the Broncos at the forefront of some primetime action, because I think you're going to see a natural rivalry between Payton and Harbaugh. I think when Denver gets a quarterback in the first round of this draft, which I think they're going to do, they're going to have to move heaven and earth, but they're going to get there. Sean's going to get his guy. I think it's going to make for primetime football. And right there, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Justin Herbert, right? I mean, again, like I said, what Harbaugh was able to do with two quarterbacks in San Francisco who weren't elite. Now you've got everyone saying Justin Herbert's elite. You're going to have him paired with Jim Harbaugh. That's going to be, that right there is going to make teams or the schedulers put those teams, in prime time, because everyone's going to want to see what Jim Harbaugh does with Justin Herbert, because we know that he hasn't realized his potential yet. They went out and spent the money, got the big name. Now it's time to deliver, and there's going to be eyes on forward.
Talking a little bit of mock draft. We're talking Jim Harbaugh, news of the day, officially joined the AFC West and the Los Angeles Chargers as the head football coach. We're talking Russell Wilson. Would he land with the Las Vegas Raiders? Would he go to Washington, Chicago? It's going to be interesting to see. I think one thing we know for sure, there's going to be a lot of change. That's coming. It's already going to start happening as soon as the Super Bowl is over, as soon as the playoffs are done. That's when you see a lot of these changes. Don't know if you saw last week, former Broncos wide receiver KJ Hamler, futures contract with the Buffalo Bills. So you kind of keep an eye and you track KJ and you wish him well, especially recovering from that heart issue. And then speaking of mock drafts, right? I talked about some of the best: Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, Mel Kiper Jr., Todd McShay. He's one of the best. He hasn't, at least I don't have his mock out just yet. There was another mock draft, Tom, and this one was odd. We're talking about this with Chad on the text chain today, and he has an article up over at milehighhuddle.com. Could Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa be en route to the Denver Broncos? Ian Cummings did a 7-round mock draft from Pro Football Network, and he suggested that the Broncos could work a 3-team trade with the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears, in which they land Tua Tagovailoa. I saw you laugh. I saw you smirk. I had the same reaction. Explain.
Well, I just mean, what are they going to trade with? They don't have a lot of trade capital that can land a big name quarterback like that. There's deals that can be worked, and I would take Tua here. It's better than what they have, but I don't know. I mean, how are they going to work that deal? I guess they can. I mean, there's ways, especially if you get a third team involved, to get it all figured out. But It makes me chuckle just because they don't have a lot of ammunition to go out and make a big trade like that.
Well, that's why, like, you know what it felt like when I read it? So here's what it would look like, just real quick. The Broncos would get Tua and then a 5th-round pick. The Dolphins would get Justin Fields, a 3rd-round pick, and then a Broncos future 2025 2nd-rounder. The Bears would get a 6th-rounder, a Dolphins 3rd-rounder, and a Broncos 6th-rounder. It seems like the Bears are really getting the short end of the stick in that scenario, right? When you first hear that, but it felt like a basketball trade, right? Where you've got like 3 or 4 teams and it's musical chairs and it's an absolute mess. That's not to say that it can't happen. And look, you give Ian Cummings his due. He's a very hardworking guy. Knows a lot about the business, but it's interesting when you talk about possibilities because that's what we have to do. Unfortunately, right now, when the Denver Broncos aren't in the postseason, all we can do is speculate. But guys, you never have to speculate with our friends over at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip the trip to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable, which is why it's America's #1 meal kit.
And this time of year, everyone is looking to revamp their eating habits. Look to HelloFresh's wholesome, health-forward options like over 30 calorie-smart and protein-smart recipes each week. And they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and HelloFresh agrees. In fact, they're giving all subscribers free breakfast for life. For life. That means you'll enjoy a totally free breakfast item with every single HelloFresh delivery, and that's worth waking up for.
Boom, guys, it's time to go with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/HuddleFree and use code HuddleFree for free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while the subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/HuddleFree with code HuddleFree. Broncos country, it is Wednesday night. It's MHI. He is Thomas Hall. I am Luke Patterson. Scott Kennedy rocking with us. We appreciate you guys, where you can find us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain. Reach out to Tom over on X at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP and Scott at Scout Kennedy. Phil coming back in. I love it, Phil. Thank you for the support. I've got a feeling we're not going to draft a quarterback at 12. We'll either take best available or trade back and find a quarterback later. I do not want Fields or Tua. Yeah, it's feeling, right? It's all about feeling. I have a feeling that they're going to go get a quarterback. Phil has a feeling that I should hold my horses so I don't get disappointed. It's so damn hard to find these quarterbacks. I said early on, right? I like Jaden Daniels a lot. You're not going to be able to get Caleb. You're not going to be able to get some of these cats within the top 3, top 5. So how do you get there? You got to get as close as you can to it. 7, 8. I think that's probably what the Broncos are looking at. I don't know that Jaden Daniels would be there, but you got to take your shot. You've got to try something. This franchise is not willing to wait. Ownership is not willing to wait to win football games. They waited. It was called the 2023 season, the 2022 season. It's time to go here in Denver, which is why I think Sean Payton's going to go find his guy. Who that guy is, I don't know. We can only speculate. But, Phil, I would be super disappointed, man. Super disappointed. I hear you. You got a feeling. But I also got a feeling, and that feeling is Sean Payton's desperate to win now.
Yeah, I mean, it all is going to depend on how everything falls, really. I mean, if they feel like the quarterback is falling to the point where they can actually go up and get that person, then yeah, they will. But you know, if quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and then 5 and 6, you don't reach for somebody that's not, don't grab somebody just because a quarterback's there. So it's going to be interesting to see. I do think they'll take a quarterback if they can figure out how to get the one that they want. Right. I mean, they're not going to go up and try and get the #1 draft choice, but if they can get up and, like you said, into the top 10 because someone's there, then they're going to do it. But if they're not, don't just take a quarterback, because we've seen that happen too many times and they end up being a bust. So just don't do it. But I just want to go back to Tua for a minute. Why would the Miami Dolphins trade him? That's my big question. Why would they want to trade Tua and then be back without a quarterback again? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm with you though. I don't want Fields, Phil. I'm not sold on Justin Fields, and I don't think they have what it takes to go get Tua.
Well, Tua's got 1 year left playing on that 5th year. Scott's reminding us at the option of 23 million. And here's the thing, if you're Miami, right? I mean, like, look, Tua had a great year. Him and Mike McDaniel, they like each other, obviously. They're connected. But Tua's got the hips of an 80-year-old woman, Tom. And like, time is not going to be a friend to him. I know he played out of his mind. It's a cool success story. I like him. I don't love him. I wouldn't want him here in Denver. But I think the trade's a little silly, to your point. And that's this time of year, right? It's mocks, it's speculation, and we roll with it. Just like Thunder Snow coming in with a very generous $9.99. Thank you, Thunder. I love that too. Thunder, lightning. This is Broncos country, right? I mean, I absolutely love it. Love the orange. No, it's interesting, man, when you look at it in terms of talking about the news cycle too, right? Just recently, you can read about milehighhuddle.com. The Broncos did sign former Browns defensive back Tanner McAllister to a future deal. So the Broncos are making some minor moves. I know they're not making any big headlines, right? Jim Harbaugh, but that was last year. Sean Payton rolls in around this time or just shortly after. Scott and I were at the Senior Bowl when the news came out last year that Sean Payton was hired, if memory serves. So it's just kind of coming full circle. Sean's full year is just about here. But no, the time to win is now. Tua, when you look at it and you compare him to Russell Wilson, which I did today, it's interesting, right? Russ got benched his final 2 games, and I'm joking about Tua, right? He's got some nasty injury history when you pull it up, when you do look at it, but he's overcome a lot in his college career and his NFL career. It's kind of hard to bet against him. He was the first Dolphins quarterback to lead the NFL in passing since Dan Marino, right? In 1992, he had his playoff debut. It was a 26-7 loss against the Chiefs. He's a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. Right, him and Mike McDaniel did good things, and it doesn't hurt when you have Tyreek Hill doing big things out there for you as well. AFC Offensive Player of the Week, of the month, but no, he had a really strong season, and you got to give Tua his due. I'm just not sure long term that that's a much better option than just another ragtag quarterback. I mean, it's expensive because he's looking to get paid. His value is at an all-time high, to your point, Tom. Why would anyone do this right now? Right. I'm telling you, he's a Pro Bowler. He's breaking Marino records. Him and Mike McDaniel finally got something going on. But I think it's indicative that the national media understands Sean Payton is looking to make a bold splash this offseason.
Yeah, and he has time to do it. I mean, I know everyone's like saying, what are you going to do? What's going on? But I mean, there's not going to be trades happening until closer to the draft. You know, they're going to look at you're going to maybe see something around free agency time. So, but right now we haven't even finished the season, right? There's still teams in the playoffs, and the Super Bowl is still, a few weeks away. So there's a lot of time left. But the interesting thing to me about moves is that it seems like he's happy with his coaching staff. It seems like he's just going to go, because if he didn't like what Vance Joseph put out there, he probably would have made a move, right? He probably would have already let him go, brought somebody else. So it looks like the defensive coordinator is going to be Vance Joseph, unless something else changes and he decides to go with Vic Fangio or talks him into coming here or whatever it may be, which I don't think he will.
No,
you look like there's not going to be any moves for a while. So there's, unless someone steals one of the Broncos assistant coaches, for a promotion, then there'll be a move made. But right now it's all quiet because they're not going to make any moves until we get closer to free agency.
That's going to be here before we know it, right?
Yeah, it is.
It truly is. It's right around the corner here. When you look at the NFL calendar, and yeah, I think the Broncos are in store for some big splashes because they can't afford not to. I think this ownership group has been patient, but there's going to be a point where their patience becomes very thin. And I think it's quickly getting there. I don't think they're mad. I don't think they're angry. I think they're competitive people. You don't become $1 billion industry or ownership group or what have you without being competitive, without understanding business. And they know that the Broncos right now aren't conducting the most maximum capacity business that they can. And that bothers them, right? How do you fix that? You win football games. You win big football games. You get to the playoffs, right? You become a sensation. You become a story, like that whole 5-game, 6-game, whatever it was, winning streak that feels like it was 10 years ago because it doesn't matter if you're not in the postseason. It's that same sort of thing. But Tom, before we go too much further, what were your reactions to the playoffs games last weekend? Had a couple of scare upset alerts, at least there for a little bit. But hey, Detroit, I was really thrilled that the Detroit Lions were able to take it to the Tampa Bay Bucs, man. Go Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, I hit on all of them except I said I wanted the Bills to win, but they probably wouldn't because I don't get what I want very often, and that's what happened. But yeah, I was disappointed that the Chiefs won because I just don't, they're the rival. I don't want them anywhere near the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, it was impressive. The games, they seemed like they were going to be much closer than they were at first. It's a couple of them, but yeah, I'm happy that the Lions made it. Like I'm actually, out of all of them, I guess I'm rooting for the Lions the most to do something because, like I said last week, the fans deserve it, man. Those Lions fans have been dedicated for a long time of suffering, so they deserve some happiness.
Do you remember last week? I can't stop thinking about it. Our guy Lawrence Rivera weighed in and he was talking about the Super Bowl logo conspiracy theory with the colors. And since he started talking about it, it's been living rent free in my head every day since then, right? I'm placing little prop bets last week on games and it's in my head then, right? And I'm talking $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, not a lot, right? Just something to give me like a little extra interest in the game, if you will. When you look at that logo, Tom, a lot of purple and a lot of red. I don't know if this signifies Ravens 49ers. I don't know if it's what. There's no more purple. There's not another purple team in here. It's not even close to blue when you're actually looking at that logo, right? So it's got me all jacked up, right? And I'm trying to look at this game.
Go look at the past Super Bowls and see if the colors that they had for the Super Bowl were the same as the teams, and then you got something. But if you go back and look at them and it's always different, then I'm not going to put much faith in.
Have you done that? Have you done that?
I haven't. I haven't put that much. I haven't been concerned with it that much. So, but maybe I will. Maybe I'll go take a look.
Well, last time I checked, right, Super Bowl 50, the Broncos don't play in gold. And I thought that was like that logo there for Super Bowl 50. So maybe you're on to something. Who do you like this weekend, man? It's going to be big. I think the Lions are going to take it to San Francisco. I really do. I smell an upset there. I do. I smell an upset. I think the 49ers got caught with their pants down a little bit in the rain, Brock Purdy. I don't know. I like an upset alert in at least one of these games. If there was an upset alert, it's Lions 49ers, right? When you look at the spread, you look at the favorites, because Chiefs Ravens, I think that's going to be close, man. I think it's going to be super close. I think the Ravens take it, though. I think you're looking at a Ravens Lions Super Bowl. At least I'm hoping for it.
That's what I'm hoping for too. I think the 49ers showed some weaknesses. I mean, they look like a pretty solid team this year, but yeah, they were struggling, this last weekend. So I think the Lions could be the upset, man. I don't care who it is at this point, just not the Chiefs. That's all I care about at this point. Just not the Chiefs, please.
It's funny. There are a lot of Michigan fans out here in Broncos country. My good buddy Gavin is one of them. And Kyle's one of them weighing in here too. And he's like, look, man, I'm a Michigan guy. And as a Wolverines guy and a Broncos fan, the news of Jim Harbaugh joining the Los Angeles Chargers, it sucks. Yeah. And I totally get that. And Kyle, I appreciate you weighing in, man. And Tom, if you missed it last year or even just a few minutes ago, Tom reminded us that was his favorite candidate. And I think a lot of people shared that same opinion. Now, was it my favorite opinion? Did I agree with it? No. Does it mean that we shouldn't talk about it? Does it mean that it's not represented? No, we should bring that up because I think this is going to be important. I think Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh are kind of linked now. Right? Their futures are kind of intertwined in a way because they will be competing against each other now. And Broncos country will always wonder, what if? That's what we do as human beings. It's what we do as analysts. That's just what we do. We kind of wonder, well, what if that would have happened? What if we would have hired a Jim? What if Sean would have waited one more year? And maybe Sean's wondering. I don't know, right? You can't be a prisoner of the moment. You can't be a prisoner of the past either. But I think Kyle is exactly right. I think you're exactly right. I think Broncos country is exactly right to bring this up.
Yeah, and the reason why I liked, other than he had, he showed that he could coach in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. But the Broncos needed a turnaround. And he was the only real coach that showed that he could turn around programs. He did it in Stanford, he did it at the 49ers, and he did it at Michigan, right? And now he went to the top of the heap at Michigan after turning that program around. That was the reason. They needed mental toughness. I thought he would bring that. They needed to be turned around. I thought he would bring that. And he had success in the NFL, solid success. That's why I worry about him going to the Chargers and making that team a much better team than they've been when the Broncos are competing with him. That was why he was my number one choice, because you liked Sean Payton too, because there's no nonsense. He brought an edge, and Jim Harbaugh did the same thing. I think the Broncos need that. They need a mentality change. I've been talking about it. They kind of had it for a little while, and then they kind of gave up in the Patriots game. So it's one of those things where you need a coach that has that edge. And man, I'm worried about the Chargers now a little bit, even though I know you said the ownership group there, they meddle. They're not a great ownership group. Harbaugh's just a good coach. That's all there is to it. He's a good coach, and he's proven it in college, and he has proven it in the NFL.
He hasn't coached in the NFL for like 10 years. Like,
it's true.
Everybody's coming out here and they're like wondering last year, oh, Sean Payton's so rusty. He's been away from the game for a whole year. At least it wasn't a decade. All right. Like, it wasn't a decade. You're right. Jim Harbaugh does know football. He's had a lot of success in almost every stop that he's been, but there's also been some ruin where he's been when you look at it.
Oh, yeah.
There was sometimes that old saying, where there's smoke, there's usually some fire. I'm interested to see how Jim Harbaugh comes back into the NFL, because 10 years is a lot of time for anything. 10 years is a ton for the NFL. When you start to look back, Tom, and I'm trying to go there right now, I can't even think about how many rule changes are there every single year, let alone 10 years, right? I'm trying to go back. What did the NFL look like 10 years ago? What were the rules like? What was the climate like? It's totally different. And I think you can go from having total control over young athletes with NLI deals and coming back to the NFL with multimillionaires with their own egos and their own way in which they operate. I think it's going to be interesting. It was interesting. It's interesting now for Sean Payton. It's interesting for any coach, right? When you look at them rubbing against their player or going against the grain in any manner. But it adds pressure. That's been the theme of this show. What kind of pressure has been added? Immense pressure for the Denver Broncos to win right now. They absolutely had to have Sean Payton. What do I mean by that? They're paying him a king's ransom, and they had to trade to go get him. They had to give up assets to acquire Sean Payton's rights before they could even sign him. Okay? So they are invested. They are heavily invested. The one thing I'll say, just to reiterate about the Chargers, right? Not only is the ownership group a little bit of meddlesome, they don't get along, the family's an absolute disaster, they hate each other, they're cheap. The Chargers are cheap. They are a cheap ownership group. They're not going to pay anybody but Justin Herbert, and that's why I think they're going nowhere fast. Is this exciting? Yes, it makes the AFC West better. I think you're going to see Broncos Chargers on prime time next year. But am I afraid of the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh? Absolutely not. Why? Because the Broncos will not have to worry about Russell Wilson and Sean Payton next year. Sean Payton and the Broncos are putting a plan together right now in which they figure out who their guy is, and they're going to go draft him in the first round.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of being away for a long time from the game, I mean, you can look at two people that I can think of, and one of them is actually a pretty good representation of what you just talked about. So first of all, you look at Dick Vermeil, right? Good coach, gone for a while, came back, had some success. But then you look at Joe Gibbs, one of the best coaches that have ever been coaching in the NFL, left
NASCAR,
came back to the Washington Redskins when they were named that at the time, now the Commanders, and didn't do as good, right? Because he had a meddling owner. He had an owner that wasn't a good owner. So there's two things that you can look back on and say, okay, there's two coaches. What is Jim Harbaugh going to be, more like Vermeil or more like Joe Gibbs? We'll see. We'll see what happens. But the problem is next year the Broncos I think are going to take a step back no matter what. Even if they find their quarterback that they want in the draft, they still have a lot of holes that are going to be needed to be filled, that they're going to have to do with young, inexperienced players who may, or veteran retreads who are long in the tooth to fill those spots. They're just not going to have the same talent. Now, maybe the year following it may be a different story, but I think next year it's going to be a tougher time finding those wins, just because they won't have the experienced talent, the nucleus when the talent really starts to hit that prime spot on their team. And that's going to make them, they're going to struggle. I just think they're going to struggle.
I think you need a quarterback on a rookie deal, right? And I think that quarterback needs to develop in real time. And it's hard to find those quarterbacks that have actually developed. And I'm watching the telecast last week, and I forget who was on the call in the Detroit game. No disrespect, but they were actually talking about Jared Goff developing in real time.
Yeah.
And I thought, That's an interesting thought when you stop to think about it and you look at his career. And the guy was saying, it feels like Jared Goff's been in, was it Collinsworth maybe? It feels like, I think it was. It feels like Jared Goff has been in, I could hear his voice, right? And everything right now as I say this. It feels like Goff's been in the league forever. And you look back on it and he really hasn't. You look at his stats, you look at his time in LA, you look at his time in Detroit right now. I mean, he is truly kind of an on the field developmental quarterback that has come even with a first round pedigree so far. Now, do I think Jared Goff is the best thing ever? No, but I think that you have to give him his flowers. And I like Rodney Garcia right here. I want to get into our friend Rodney's question here because Rodney knows you have to be willing to turn over every stone. Now, people can giggle, they can laugh, they can throw rocks, lob those rocks from their glass houses on social media, but you truly have to do your homework and try to be as unbiased and unsolicited as you can. So in doing so, maybe you look at some unpopular options that might be available because you truly don't know what the best choice is, Tom, unless you know all of your options. Yeah. That being said, would you guys take Mac Jones or Zach Wilson?
Well, for a bridge kind of get to the next person, it would be Mac Jones. He seems a little bit more steady. He's never gonna win you games. He's not good enough to win you games, but he's going to be more steady if you want to bring him in for a year while you're bringing in a young rookie quarterback to kind of get you some, not really veteran presence, but somebody who's steady, right? Zach Wilson is just too erratic for me. He can be really good at one point and just horrible the next 3 games. So he doesn't bring any stability. So between those, I don't really want either one, but between those two, I would take Mac Jones because he seems a little bit more stable when he's back there quarterbacking.
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers, Mike, right? Mike's right there with us. He's like, nah, can we just pass on both? That's an interesting question though, Rodney, right? Because what happens if they become available? You got to look at that. What happens if the phone rings and someone offers you them, for low cost? Is it worth bringing them in? I think Zach Wilson, I was completely wrong on him. I'm gonna say that. I think he's got some athletic talent. He does not have the maturity. I don't think he processes the game quick enough, at least right now. But out of the two, I would go Mac Jones. I actually liked Mac Jones coming out of the draft. I was in the minority there. You could say I was wrong about Mac Jones too. He's won a lot more games than Zach Wilson. But Mac Jones kind of reminds me of like Matt Castle when you look at it. And I know Castle was a 7th rounder, not a 1st rounder, but you look at their style of play. I think Mac Jones is going to bounce around. I think you're going to see him be a journeyman for a little bit. He'll get some shine here and there. Maybe it's like a Drew Lock type thing where he throws a game-winning touchdown. Yay, everybody, and then goes back into his shell for a little bit. But Phil McLaughlin coming in, talking about shells and whether you come out of your shell, whether you go back into it. How shocked would we be if Russ comes back? Right, and it's Russell Wilson, Broncos 2024. I'd be absolutely stunned.
Yeah,
Phil. The toothpaste does not go back into the tube. Sean Payton doesn't like Russell Wilson. Well, I don't think Russ likes Sean either. Okay, can we just be all right and say it's okay if you don't like somebody? Russ is okay. Sean's okay. They're grown men. I think they can handle it. But no, what's done is done, Dad. All right, like it's Step Brothers. It's that fuse has been lit. The dynamite's blown. There's no way that these two can coexist. And Sean Payton knew that the second he benched Russell Wilson.
And I don't think he's coming back. The only way is if the ownership came down and said, we're keeping him because he costs a lot of money, he costs a lot of draft picks. You got to figure out how to work with him. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think that's the only way this happens. So I would be shocked if he was still on this team next year. Absolutely shocked.
I give it a 0% chance. Like I'm almost willing to, like, seriously, I'm like almost, there's no such thing as a guarantee, right? But like, I don't know how close we can come to something like it.
Yeah.
Because I can't see those two coexisting. What happens if it does, Phil? How shocked would I be? Well, I'd be pretty shocked because Sean Payton would have surrendered. That means that he didn't have a plan, or the plan massively failed, and the Broncos are in a nosedive if that's the case. It'd be a panic move. I think plans are already in the works. Sean already told us as much, that he sat with Russ and he talked about options and didn't think this would be a long and drawn out process. So that I actually believe Sean when he speaks into the microphone, man. He's very telling with what he does say, what he doesn't say. But But yeah, look at Pearl, our friend. Always
Yeah,
leave that
1%.
1% chance, man. That's why
Never
there's
know.
yeah.
There's
You're
always that
telling
chance.
you're
I
telling
mean,
me there's a
there is a
chance.
chance, right? I mean, there really is. Like, it
No,
could be like, you know
no,
what? You're
no.
going to work with him, but it's
Stop it.
like I said,
Stop it, Pearl.
it
Tom,
is,
stop it.
it
They're
is
done.
I would be, like I said, I would be stunned.
Sean knew they were done when he benched Russ. You know when Russ knew he was done? When he gave that interview at his locker room, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care about either one, to be honest with you. Sean had to say something about it. And I think if you're Russell Wilson, the quarterback, Russell Wilson, the player, Russell Wilson, the man, you have to say something about it too. Yeah. So do I like Russ talking about it and kind of whining into the cameras? At least that's the way I felt. No, I didn't like it. Does he have the right to do it? Yes. Would I do it? Yes. You've got to campaign for yourself. You have to advocate for yourself, not only as a quarterback in the NFL, but hell, as an adult, as a grown man in this world. If you're not going to do it for you, no one will. That's the quick thing you learn as an adult. You've got to be willing to pick yourself up sometimes. And I know we all have families. We all have loved ones. We all have our support system and our safety nets, but Tom, sometimes you truly are your own best friend. You're your own best advocate. And I don't blame Russ for going at it, man.
Yeah, and you have to be your own self-promoter as an adult too. Very few people promote you, right? So if you want to go out there and say something and get that next chance, you got to go out there and say it. And yes, my favorite comedy of all time. So you're telling me there's a chance.
Oh, Lloyd Christmas and the bowl cut, man. That's what we got to bring the bowl cut back. I don't know if the Broncos, they're done with the rookie haircuts, right? The NFL, is that hazing now? They can't shave someone's head. Good Lord. What are we coming to, Tom? Phil McLaughlin coming in here. What does PFF rank the 4 defenses in the playoffs right now? Not sure, Phil. I'm being completely honest. How would I rank them? Well, I'll tell you what. The Baltimore defense is absolutely dynamite. I can tell you that. The Kansas City Chiefs, too. I think they're 1-2 or 2-3, if memory serves. That's just looking at total yards. Now, I'm not like a PFF zealot, so I don't have that answer off top hand. But I'll tell you this. I think fireworks, Kansas City, Baltimore. That's the game I think everyone's truly looking at. Scott's right here, man. He's got the 49ers in at number 2 and the Ravens in at number 3 in terms of overall defenses in the playoffs right now. Man, what do you think is going to happen in that Chiefs Ravens game? Is it high scoring or is it low scoring? I think everybody thinks that the quarterbacks are going to go off, but watching Kansas City play Buffalo, and I know we could say what we want about the Bills and Sean McDermott and the offense even, but the Chiefs defense has played exceptionally well this year, Tom. I don't trust Spags. I never will. He makes some boneheaded moves at the worst time, but the Chiefs defense really impressed me against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, if it's a high-scoring game, I'm afraid Chiefs are going to win it. That's unfortunate, but I hope that I hope that it's not, and the Ravens are able to control the game, right? Because once it starts getting in between who's going to be able to sling it the most, Patrick Mahomes has proven that he can do it time and time again in the playoffs. So I hope it's a low-scoring game, but you never know. You never know about these playoff games, but depending on the weather and what the Ravens game plan is, hopefully they can keep the score down enough to keep their game plan going.
Look, we got another hopeful prediction lining up with ours, and I should just say the rest of America's because we all want to see this one, right? Lions Ravens at the big game. Book it. Oh, man, I would love to, NBL, but there's this thing that's called a conspiracy theory that piques my curiosity, right before I go to bed. And Lawrence Rivera's bringing it up to me last week, and now he lives in my head rent-free, and he's like, Luke, the Super Bowl logos, they're purple and red. They're purple and red. Why do I think the Niners are actually going to take it from Detroit? No, it's cool to see different teams in here, too, right? Like, I know everybody wants the national story of Pat Mahomes. Is he going to pass the torch to Lamar Jackson? No, Pat Mahomes is an absolute killer, and he wants to go break some hearts in Baltimore. Everybody forgot about Travis Kelce. How in the hell can Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills defense forget about number 87? Whatever you do, do not forget about number 87. Tom, I was in on those player prop bets for Travis Kelce all night, baby. And he could have had 3. But look, when you look at Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, that's a headline right there. AFC Championship, the way it should be, right? When we talk about training camp in the summer, you pick two teams in the AFC. Man, what one hell of a matchup. People aren't talking about the defenses enough in this game, Tom. I think you could see a low scoring game. I mean, how crazy would that an old school, cold weather, low scoring game against two of the league's best?
It would be. I'm a defensive guy, so I enjoy those low scoring. Defenses banging people around, and that type of stuff. But the problem is it in today's NFL, they end up scoring points no matter what. So my thing is it's going to be in the 20s, right? The scores are going to be, both teams are going to be at least in the 20s in that game, and frankly probably the Detroit San Francisco game as well. There's just points get scored. Unfortunately, not by the Broncos, but points do get scored by other teams, and I think they will.
Why do I feel Justin Tucker may kick the game winner? Because he's that damn good. Is he the best kicker we've ever seen, Tom? I mean, you watch this man kick. He is the definition of clutch. He's fiery. He's ingrained in Baltimore. He is the Ravens as a kicker, as I say that, right? He is part of the Ravens. I mean, Justin Tucker, man, damn it.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was, like the Kansas City Chiefs has a good kicker, and the Baltimore Ravens.
Harrison Butker.
Yeah, they have good kickers, right? But they have good players across the board. And I was thinking back, gosh, I remember in the day back, Jason Elam was the kicker he was a good kicker. Plus they had great talent all across the board. That's why they won back-to-back Super Bowls, right? And then you look at the Broncos, you look at other teams that just kind of struggle to put something consistent together. They don't have that talent all across the board like the Chiefs and the Ravens do. And it sucks as a Broncos fan, but you do have to appreciate the fact that they've built some really good teams, in every aspect. They have good players, talented players in every part of the game, and that's why they consistently win.
Well, and to your point, Tom, they're always developing. The good teams always are, right? We got the private chat going here in StreamYard, right? And Scott has a link out there to when you look at the Ravens roster and how they built. And I had just popped up there and I was like, good old Ozzie, right? Ozzie Newsome. I know. He's not super involved. Yeah, right. Ozzie Newsome, one of the godfathers of evaluating talent. And that's just it, man. It's knowing when to get guys, and not only when to get them in the draft, but how do you bring them up? You always look for the next crop rather of players. And I look at it with Noah Gray. I remember being at the Senior Bowl watching Noah Gray come out of Duke. I pegged him as one of my picks for the Broncos. But just because you have the Travis Kelce doesn't mean you shouldn't look for tight end. What happens if Kelce's unavailable? What happens if he leaves the team? What happens if a million things? These franchises, Baltimore, Kansas City, and San Francisco in particular, have truly been masterful in building rosters. And that's something that the Broncos have to emulate. I think it's something that Sean Payton and George Payton are working on together right now. I'd be shocked if they weren't watching the games together, taking notes, trying to field a way to, it's the copycat league, baby, right? I mean, the Broncos got to get in sometime.
Yeah, and they have the Ravens especially have been good at evaluating talent to fill in, so they don't have to pay big money to some of these people. They let them walk, right? Because
that's it, Tom.
They found somebody to fill in, and they're not out there spending tons of money to bring in players. And that's how you build your team. And you may not find superstars in the fourth round. Sometimes you do, you get lucky, but you find competent enough players that can step in for somebody when they go to free agency, right? You've got to find those backfield players. And that's part of the Broncos problem back when they gave up on some of these draft picks way too soon. I thought they drafted poorly, but they also gave up on draft picks too soon. They didn't let them develop.
Who do you think? Give me an example.
I mean, for some reason, Isaiah McKenzie comes to mind right away. Like the guy went to Buffalo and played okay, right? They let him go right off.
He was horrible, Tom. Do you remember how bad he was? I mean, like,
yeah, but you invested your draft pick in him, and then you just let him go that year. You didn't even give him a chance to develop, right?
Where was he drafted?
He came to my mind. That who came to my mind right away. But you got to give these guys a chance to develop. You can't just. They've got to be good right now, especially for a 4th or 5th round draft choice. Let them develop.
What's Isaiah McKenzie done lately? Seriously.
Well, yeah, it's been 7 years or something like that since you
I
left.
remember you raking George Payton over the coals for Vaughn too, and I'm sure you saw the little Vaughn tidbit, right, of making a bunch of money for doing a whole lot of nothing
Yeah,
this year.
no, he was.
I'm being facetious, right? Vaughn won another Super Bowl, was a huge catalyst to that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so you have a point, Tom. You can't just cut bait too early. But the Broncos have also been guilty. They've been guilty of both, which is why we're
yep,
where we're at,
absolutely.
right? They hang on to guys way too long, the wrong guys, and then they cut maybe the right guys, the what if guys, way too early.
Yep.
And that's just it. So when I look at these mock drafts and I hear Carl and Nick talking about it, I hear Scott and Nick in the morning, I read about it over at milehighhuddle.com. Alabama cornerback, the Arnold kid, he's the best corner, right? Pastor Tan, him and that kid probably know each other fairly well. UCLA edge, the Latu kid. Man, it makes me wonder, like, okay, are you guys just done with Jonathan Cooper? Are you done with Baron Browning? That's not to say that there shouldn't be upgrades, but it makes you wonder a little bit, right? What does the future hold with Josie Jewell? What's it hold with Lloyd Cushenberry? Right? I mean, these are things that we don't have, to your point, Tom, an answer ready and wait. We don't even have potential ready to go, right? And I know. My dad's really curious about like Luke Wattenberg, right? But I'm like, Dad, look, if you think Luke Wattenberg is the answer for Lloyd Cushenberry right now, I hate to tell you, I just can't go there. But that's the point. The Broncos don't have these guys that they've developed in the draft, on the practice squad, in special teams to give
Yeah,
these guys a chance, man.
and that's why I kept scratching my head this entire year. Why was JL Skinner inactive all the time? Why not give him, even when you knew that you were not going to go to the playoffs, he got activated, but I didn't see him out on the defense. How are you, I get you see him in practice, you see that, but let's see what some of these young guys could do. Cushenberry, you're probably not going to sign him. Why was he the starter of the final game of the season? Or why not take him out and put in Forsyth and see what he can do? That's the part that I didn't understand about this season, is when you knew you were going to be strapped for cash and you knew you were going to have to rely on your young guys, why were they not playing? That was the big question. That's why I had a bit of a head scratcher about Sean Payton, is why aren't you seeing what you have in these guys? Because then all right, this guy's not going to cut it. He's just not going to cut it.
Maybe he knows. Maybe coach knows
Maybe.
what he has in some of them, and he doesn't want everybody else to know, right? Because then you start poaching. I don't know. That's just me. You're exactly right, Tom. Would that be the answer and the reason to do it? No, I completely agree with you. Like, it's a head scratching moment, but you try to play devil's advocate. You try to look at it. As we wrap up the show, I have to get to our guy, Zach. Zach's been super active in the chat tonight, man. Thank you so much for joining MHI. Mr. Zach Powers. There's no such thing as a developmental quarterback anymore. These quarterbacks have been playing since they were 7 years old, not the Montana days where they found them in a field throwing through a tire swing. I love it, Zach. I agree with you there. Here's what my point was with Jared Goff being a developmental quarterback. It's, you see his progress on the field, and I wasn't high on Jared Goff either. I think he's had a great turnaround. It's almost Alex Smith-esque, if you will, minus the injury. And he's finally living up to that first round potential. I subscribe to the theory that franchise quarterbacks aren't developed, they're born. And you just got to find them. You got to find them. You got to be willing to have all your circumstances come together in the most idyllic fit that they can. Michael Rinquillo, man, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks for all the support. Great show tonight, Thomas and Luke on the Mile High Insiders. Go Broncos and buck them. And that's exactly it. That's what I got to say. What do I think about Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers as head coach with Justin Herbert? Buck him. I don't care. Doesn't scare me one bit. I think it's good for the Denver Broncos. I think it adds a level of intrigue. It's going to get primetime games. Sign me up, baby. I'm here.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about the development, the comment about development. They have been playing a long time, but a lot of these quarterbacks, you have to understand, aren't playing in the pro style offense. They're playing in a completely different offense in college. Look at Bo Nix. They had signs. They held up signs to tell him what the coverage was. They're not going to be doing that for him in the NFL. So there is some development, but you're right. They have to have what it takes to do it. Some don't. Some just can't develop it, and and they don't have. Then there's no patience for it anymore either. If it doesn't happen right away, then they know they need to move on right away. So there is a little bit of development that has to happen.
Boom. Look at our guy KB coming in here. What's up, KB? Hopefully you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in right at the last second here, baby. What's the chance that the Broncos don't extend Jerry Jeudy and that he succeeds on another team? What is the perfect team for Jerry Jeudy? What's success? Ken, do you consider Jerry Jeudy a success in the NFL right now? I mean, it all depends on your. I'm not trying to be facetious, man. I'm not trying to cop out, but what is your definition of success? I'm out on Jerry Jeudy. I've been out on Jerry Jeudy for years. Yet we right here, I'm writing about him on training camp, every single year. This is going to be Jerry Jeudy's year. It's going to be Jerry Jeudy's year. I think they need to get rid of Jerry Jeudy. I don't think they will. I think Sean Payton likes Jerry Jeudy. I think that he wants to get something out of him. I think he thinks that Jerry Jeudy just needs Sean Payton's arm around him, and those two will come together, and they'll be the best thing ever. I don't see it. He's been linked to the Cleveland Browns for a long team. I don't know that there's a perfect team for him. Maybe the Cincinnati Bengals, where they have such a rich wide receiver core that he could just blend in and do something occasionally. Maybe that's the perfect team. I'm out on Jerry.
This is what I was thinking the other day when they were talking about keeping Jerry Jeudy. It was like yesterday, I think, actually, how and everybody, it's like everybody talks about how he needs a certain type of quarterback. It's like Jerry Jeudy can only be good if he has a perfect quarterback to throw to him. That tells me that Jerry Jeudy is not an elite player. He doesn't make anybody better around him. He needs the perfect situation in order for him to succeed.
A little louder, Tom, for the folks in the back.
Jerry Jeudy is what he is at this point. If he goes to the perfect situation, he could be successful, but he's not going to be this elite receiver that everybody expected him to be when he was drafted in the first round. I think they should let him go. I think they should trade him for something. They should keep Cortland Sutton, restructure his deal, and try and get him for, keep him around for a couple more years. Whether they do that or not, I don't know. I just don't think Jerry Jeudy has what it takes to be an elite wide receiver. And if he's not going to be elite wide receiver, you get what you can for him and you try and replace him in the draft.
He's got the talent. I just don't know if he has the fire, KB. That's just it, man. If you can't coach fire, right? I'm telling, we're coaching volleyball. We're coaching kids, right? We all coach, we all teach, we all do something. You can't coach or teach the willingness to care, the willingness to put forth your best foot every single day. We'll have to see. Time will tell. Changes are coming their way to the Denver Broncos because Jim Harbaugh is now in the AFC West. The Broncos have to find their quarterback. Where does that leave Russell Wilson? Who are the Broncos going to draft? Are they going to move up? Are they going to get their guy? These are all questions we're going to continue to ponder, speculate, and debate. Guys, be sure to head on over to milehighhuddle.com. Check out all of your latest news and analysis. Stay locked on to MHI every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain. Follow Tom on X at Thomas Hall NFL, yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Reach out to Scott at Scout Kennedy. We got Legends coming up on Friday morning. Don't forget the boys, OBV on Saturday nights. Broncos for breakfast. Nick and Scott also have your back. The Huddle Up Boys, Mile High podcast will be back tomorrow as well. Tom, great show, man. Always a lot of fun. Crazy day in the NFL, man. I know a lot of people say the news cycle feels slow this time of year. Usually it is, but it's an exciting day in the AFC West, man. I'm pumped that we got that news on this show.
Yeah, me too. We've been lucky with a few things that have broken over the last few weeks, which has been fun. It's been fun to have breaking news to talk about. So, it's always fun to hang out with you, Luke, chat about football and chat about anything, really. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody that jumped in the chat today. It was a good discussion. So thank you.
Boom. Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh, get your dukes up. These guys are going to be battling for the next couple of years. Broncos country, here we go into the AFC West. This is the way.
This is the way.